Good Friday evening to you. Hope your weekend is off to a great start. Thanks for joining us on More Sports and Less Levine, the Weekend Winners Edition. I'm Dave Bacon. Cleveland Browns getting ready to host the Washington football team. Both teams 1-1 on the season as we are in week 3. The game over at First Energy Stadium in downtown Cleveland. Some notes. Browns are trying to go to 2-1 for the first time since back in 2011. Heck, the Browns are trying to have a winning record above 500 at any point since 2014. That's how much the Browns have struggled. They've had 10 days to get ready for it. Offense looked pretty good against the Cincinnati Bengals. Washington, they're a team that has been pretty good. A little bit of a surprise that they're 1-1, opened with a win over the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, the Washington defensive line against the Browns offensive line figures to be a big matchup. It's strength on strength. The Washington football team's D-line is actually a really good young unit. Browns offensive line has played pretty well in the first 2 games. Washington head coach Ron Rivera, in his first year, knows that matchups are always important, but don't get too carried away. He knows this Browns offense can run the football, and that concerns him.
Matchups, yeah, they're cool. They're fun to talk about, but, to me, it's still about the 11-on-11. And I don't ever want to try and create that perception, that it's all on this group. Just these are the only guys. If they don't play good, we don't win. No, because, you don't want your guys coming in and saying, oh, man, we're getting our butts kicked up front. Yeah, well, what about what's happening in the back? So is it a good matchup? Yeah, it should be a good matchup. And I'm not necessarily sure if it's just about the offensive line. They got 2 quality running backs. Okay, and I can tell you right now, if you don't stop the run, their play action game becomes very dangerous. Baker's very good, very sleight of hand. He fakes the ball very well. Tucks it, gets himself, he arcs out really nicely on those rollouts and gives himself an opportunity to square those shoulders and throw the ball downfield. I mean, there's a lot of things that play into what they do. And a big part of it is off of their running game, there's a lot of complementary play action passing, and we have to be really good about that. Well, I think their ability to get vertical, I do. I think their wide receiver crew is a group that's really still kind of trying to find themselves. I mean, they've had 3 new head coaches in 3 years, or 3 different head coaches, I say, in 3 years. And so now, they got a new offensive coordinator. They're still learning. I'm still kind of figuring them out. But when you watch them go vertical, I mean, they can hit you really fast. That gives me a little bit of angst. And then their ability to run the ball. They're a big physical group up front, and they want to run the ball downhill. Defense, I think again, their pass rush is solid. They're very physical, very active along their front.
Well, and in reference to the Browns wide receivers, it is important to realize it's the first year in a new system, but make no mistake about it. The Browns want to run the football with Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt. And both Jarvis, Landry, and Odell Beckham say they understand that the run will set up the pass, and that this year they're more concerned with wins as opposed to those big receiving stat lines.
And for me, knowing it's probably not going to be that kind of season. Like I always say, my goal is always going to be my goal, and I don't feel like I'm ever going to fall short of it. And I think, like I said, learning acceptance. So you set new goals, watching Jordan's documentary, having game within a game, working on a release during a run game, or working something else. A new goal, aside from winning, always, Nick Chubb needs to be number 1 rusher in the league. Or Kareem too as well. You got 2 legitimate number 1 backs in the backfield. And our team is very, very, very good at running the football. So you have to play to your strength. And then I think you learn where you fit in and where you're able to make your plays and how you can help the team. I tell Chubb every day, I owe you. I want that big block that springs him free, just to see him running down the field, even though he's not going to give me any love after. He's not going to have much emotion about it. But just to see him running free and down the sideline is going to be a great feeling. So I think a lot of my growth came in acceptance of life, acceptance of things, and just knowing that that's what it's going to be, and finding a way to create that block that springs them, or whatever it is to help us win.
I think we always going to do what best fits, increases our chances of winning. Whether that's running the ball or passing the football or having a true balance. I think the strength of our team, right now has been our running game, and we want to continue to try to use that as much as possible. But I think we're smart enough to recognize when, the ball needs to be in the air and not on the ground. And we have a lot of unselfish guys in this building, and that's what it's going to take when you got a lot of Pro Bowl caliber players on one team to be unselfish and understand that when the ball comes your way, just take advantage of our opportunities, whether it be, few or many. And I think that guys in this building recognize that and are aware of that. I believe so. I think, they're gonna, like I said, I think we're gonna do whatever best fits our chances to win that week. And each week it can change. Each week it can be a little bit different. And I think again we have a great staff that can recognize that and understand the positions that we need to be in for as how we're gonna attack defenses, on the ground or in the air, and kind of go from there. So. I don't think nobody's panicking right now about targets or anything like that. Our main focus is just trying to win games.
Jarvis Landry, Browns wide receiver, and before him, Odell Beckham Jr., Browns wide receiver, both saying they want to win. Winning sure seems to cure a lot of ills within a team. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out, and on the other side of the break, we'll be joined by Ellis Williams, Browns beat reporter. He's going to tell us what he thinks Odell's role will be in this offense. Browns favored by 7.5 over the Washington football team. More sports and less Levine. The Weekend Winners Edition will be right back. Stay with us.
Presque Isle Downs and Casino has sports betting. Use one of our 50 state-of-the-art Bet America kiosks to place your bet and watch your favorite games on one of our many HD televisions or visit our sportsbook area. Only at Presque Isle Downs and Casino.
Do you like Ohio State football? Would you like to get information from me, Doug Lesmerises, about Ohio State football without having to look at my face? We have got the plan for you. Become an Ohio State text subscriber through cleveland.com. You send a text, 614-350-3315. What do you get? 2, 3, 4 texts right in your phone every day about Ohio State football. Inside information, polls, voting, all kinds of things. You can be on our podcast. We take text subscriber questions on our Buckeye Talk podcast every week. If you really want to be involved with Ohio State football, in season or out of season, become an Ohio State text subscriber from cleveland.com. Send a text to 614-350-3315. 14-day free trial. What do you have to lose? $3.99 a month after that. 614-350-3315. I'll see you in your phone.
Tri-C is here for you. Now more than ever, you need a post-secondary education. So I encourage you to start your journey here at Tri-C. The majority of fall classes will take place online, but we've added a variety of formats to meet your learning needs, and we've taken many steps to keep you safe on campus. Whether you're ready to get started or your four-year plans have changed, Tri-C is where futures begin.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine. Welcome back to More Sports and Less Levine, the Weekend Winners Edition. I'm Dave Bacon. We've heard from Ron Rivera, as well as Odell Beckham Jr. and Jarvis Landry. Time to bring in Browns beat reporter Ellis Williams. He's the beat reporter here on cleveland.com, as well as in the pages of the Plain Dealer. Ellis, appreciate it. I know you wrote quite a bit about Odell Beckham Jr. What do you expect him to do in this offense, and how do you see Kevin Stefanski using him?
Yeah, it's a fun question. For coming on now 2 seasons, the question of how are the Browns going to use Odell Beckham Jr.? How does he fit in Cleveland? Over here, all this talk about his chemistry with Baker Mayfield. And I think the Thursday night win against Cincinnati at home was exactly what we're going to get out of Odell Beckham Jr. That's the stat line. 4 catches, somewhere between 60, 70 yards. If the big one, another one hits and he doesn't get held there, you're talking about a 100-yard game, 2-touchdown performance. But it's the way that Odell gets those yards. I wrote about how Stephon Diggs in Minnesota had a 42% share of his team's air yards, meaning that when the ball went deep, there was a 42% chance it was headed to Stephon Diggs because that's where the bulk of his yardage came from. And right now, Odell Beckham Jr. sits at about 48%. The sample size is small with 2, but he'll probably stay in that high 40s area because that is what Kevin Stefanski demands out of his outside receiver. In New York, he ran a lot of slants, some quick screens, that quick-hitting game, and that's still in Stefanski's offense. But for him to marry the run to the pass the way he wants to, he needs wide receivers to take their DBs and safeties downfield to not only open up running lanes, but also open up underneath passes for guys like Austin Hooper, Harrison Bryant, and even Kareem Hunt coming out of the backfield. So Browns fans who want the Odell of 100-plus catches or 100-plus yard games and multiple touchdowns, that's not the Odell you're going to see. You're going to see the type of player you got Thursday. He's going to be used sparingly. He's going to be used opportunistically. And ultimately, he is a very key ingredient in this offense, but he's not the complete cake. Without him, this offense would struggle because that threat remains. But the way Odell affects this Browns offense, it's stuff that doesn't show up on a box score. And I know that's not exciting for fantasy football owners and probably not all that exciting for Odell Beckham Jr. himself. But that's the role in this offense, and that's how Stefanski maximizes ultimately what he's trying to do.
And we've heard both Jarvis Landry and Odell in the segment before this say they understand that, they're fine with that, they want to win. Are you buying that? Do you truly believe that's the way they feel? Or when you're sitting in week 4 or 5 with 15, 20 catches, is that going to become an issue, do you think?
Yeah, so I've been floating this formula. To keep a receiver happy, they need 3 things. They need yards, they need touchdowns, and they need wins. All right, well, if Beckham can get his yards through the air, he'll have those yards. If the Browns can win some games, he'll have his wins. The touchdowns, I don't see that happening. Stephon Diggs had 5 red zone targets last year, just 5. He caught one of them. On Thursday, we saw Odell and Baker try to hook up the end zone, and it really could have been a time jump back to 2019 because it looked like they just still didn't have a red zone connection. So the Odell Beckham touchdowns aren't going to be there. Where I'm going with this is Stephon Diggs left Minnesota this offseason. He was traded for a ransom of picks, and now he's leading the league in receiving in Buffalo and what looks like a MVP candidate in Josh Allen. So will it work for this season? Yes, it will. The Vikings got to the playoffs, won a game, and then lost in the divisional round against the Saints. I don't know if that's where this Browns team's headed, but if they can stay in contention, win games, and flirt with that, one of those lower playoff spots, then this will be a happy Odell Beckham Jr. for now and Jarvis Landry. But you can see where things can go south quickly because when they're not getting the ball, that's at the sacrifice for the betterment of the team to win the game. Now, if they're not winning the game, these 2 playmakers are going to want the ball in their hands. It's really that simple. The results have to happen first, and the good soldiers will fall in line. If they string a couple losses before the bye week and that tough stretch they have, now we're talking a little more dicey situation. Win the football games, and these players will fit Kevin Stefanski's offense. If they don't, you're going to see that wide receiver showman, we need the ball, come out a little more. It's just natural wide receiver behavior. It's how these superstars think and how they operate, and they get paid to do so.
Well, and the other thing is winning cures a lot of ills. You win a lot, not much bothers you. Let's shift gears a little bit. Jedrick Wills, what did you see? I know you did extensive tape look at the Browns' offensive line. What did you see from Jedrick Wills?
Jedrick's been really impressive. We always knew his feet would be there. What is impressing me more is his aggressiveness. He's punching first. He's attacking these defensive ends and bringing the fight to them rather than waiting to see what moves they might throw at him. And that's, I don't want to say it's rare in a rookie, but to come in and have the confidence to do that, he's clearly getting coached up to be the aggressor, to bring the fight to the defensive lineman across from him. And they're using him in real creative ways too. They're, like I said, they've been pulling him at times to lead block when you think, a tackle traditionally stays on the end out there and just, shuffle left and reach blocking in a zone scheme. And as right now, you can't sit here and call him the next Joe Thomas or anything like that, but I don't know if you can be any more happy with what he's been. I don't think there's an offensive lineman you would say you would have picked other than him right now. All of these young tackles around the league are playing good. And I think it just comes back to what we all knew was the consensus going into the draft, was that there were 4 or 5 real studs and that the Browns couldn't miss one. And they didn't, and it seems like Jedrick will be in that left side for a while.
Washington defensive front has been pretty good. They're young. How big of a challenge is that for the Browns, and how big of a concern is it for you when you look at this game, that Washington football team defensive front?
Yeah, it's going to be a massive challenge. Washington has the best DVOA in football, according to Football Outsiders. It's a stat I lean on. Just takes opportunity, down and distance, everything into consideration to then decide on how valuable your defense is per snap, per play. A lot of that has to do with their sacks. They had, I think, 8 sacks in one game against Philly last week, so their sack numbers might be a little misleading, but it doesn't change the playmakers they have up front and the way Ron Rivera schemes them up. This is strength against strength. And when NFL teams do that, it tends to end in a stalemate, meaning I see this game being a slower 20-13 type of contest. Dwayne Haskins isn't going to do anything that's going to blow this Browns defense out of the water. Thank goodness for the Browns defense. But I don't think this Browns offense necessarily is going to be able to move the ball like they were against Cincinnati. It's not going to be 8 yards per carry for Kareem Hunt. I'm looking for more stat lines like 19 carries for Nick Chubb, 70 yards, and 15 carries for Kareem Hunt, 62 yards. It's going to be one of those ground and pound, slow games, and they're going to have to convert their third downs. The Browns only faced 8 third downs against the Bengals. I bet they're faced double digits third down against Washington. Baker Mayfield's got to be clutch on those 3rd and 5s, 6th and 7s when the Browns won't be able to run the ball. Baker's going to have to get the ball at the right spot and keep those drives going. It's going to be a slow game, a running game, and a defense-oriented one. It's strength versus strength on Sunday. So you expect another running game. What's the next step for Baker Mayfield? What do we need to see to know he's on the right path, the path that the franchise needs him to be on? The interceptions, they got to stop. It's that simple. He cannot be turning the ball over. Kevin Stefanski, though he doesn't tell us a lot being in the media, he is very clear about his hate for turnovers, if you will. That might be a little strong. He hasn't said hate, but you can coach speak. He cannot stand turning the ball over. The interception versus Baltimore was a little more understandable. The one against Cincinnati is just one you can't have. Down in distance, they left points on the board. A score there probably ends the game. I understand Baker Mayfield going for the kill shot, Harrison Bryant, a deep streaking tight end. But Baker just failed to see the backside corner. And for whatever reason that was, if he misread it at the snap or if he didn't get his eyes fully across the field to see the boundary corner and perhaps a deep cover 3, it's at the pro level, it can't happen. He's thrown 8 interceptions. He's had at least 1 interception in 8 straight games dating back to week 12 of last season. Of course, on a 2 interception streak already in 2020. No quarterback anticipates starting that way, but that is Baker Mayfield's start of the season so far. So he can clean this up real quickly, just take care of the football, and it's the type of interceptions he's throwing. He's getting duped a little bit, and that's a between-the-ears thing that needs to stop. Ellis Williams, Browns beat reporter here on cleveland.com, as well as in the pages of the Plain Dealer. Time for us to step aside, take a quick timeout. On the other side of the break, we'll flip sides of the ball. We'll talk Browns defense. More sports. Les Levine, the Weekend Winners Edition, will be right back. Stay with us.
Wow, get Nature's Stone and never replace your garage flooring again. Act now for huge summer savings on our exclusive Nature's Blend Stone, as low as $2.99 a square foot plus installation. Only Nature's Stone eliminates cracked, uneven concrete, and Nature's Stone never peels like cheap paints and coatings. Safe, beautiful garage flooring that's always backed by Russell's Promise, our true unconditional warranty. Schedule your free cost estimate easily online today at naturestone.com. It's not just a floor. Wow, it's Nature's Stone.
There are tastes we remember. Every smell brings the happiness of times gone by. Experience this every time you walk into Gallucci's Italian Foods. Whether you need lunch on the go, a catered party, or that perfect blend of wine, meats, and cheeses, Gallucci's has exactly what you're looking for. Straight from Mama's kitchen for old world traditions or original experiences. From the tastes you remember to new flavors you'll never forget. Gallucci's is a tasty branch of your family tree.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just the mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
Welcome back to More Sports and less Levine, the weekend winners edition. Browns getting ready for the Washington football team Sunday at 1 o'clock, trying to improve to 2-1. Let's welcome back in Browns beat reporter for cleveland.com, as well as in the pages of the Plain Dealer, Ellis Williams. Ellis, let's talk defense. What concerns you about this matchup coming up? Washington football team offense, Browns defense.
Buckeye fans are going to like this one. It's Terry McLaurin. I don't know how the Browns are going to stop him inside. He had a touchdown. I was watching the Washington-Arizona game, both live, and I went back and rewatched it. And he's just a monster in the slot. He's slippery. He wiggles. He gets open. And the Browns' cover corners right now in the slot have been horrendous. And a lot of that has to do with playing their third or fourth guy at times. And now with Kevin Johnson, Greedy Williams, both coming back. Kevin Stefanski said something really interesting this week. He was asked if there's a chance that Denzel Ward, Terrence Mitchell, or Greedy Williams plays inside, even though those three are traditionally outside corners. And Coach Stefanski, in the way he does, short but to the point, there's a very good chance. That was his answer. And that, to me, is very telling that maybe this is the game that Denzel Ward shadows McLaurin and just wherever he goes on the field, and Denzel takes that next step into elite corner category, because that's the leap he's flirting with right now. After that A.J. Green performance, really shutting down one of the greatest receivers of the past decade, now it's time to see if he is going to follow Terry McLaurin around. And if he doesn't, that's not a knock on Ward. It's a scheme thing, and Joe Woods then would trust a guy perhaps like Terrence Mitchell just playing in the slot on him, or a healthy Kevin Johnson coming back. But I'll tell you one thing, it won't be Tavier Thomas out there, or if it is, it's going to be a problem again, because Terry McLaurin is one of the best route runners in football, and that middle of the field is where the Browns defense has not been able to cover. So one of these corners has to step up and protect that middle of the field, or that's where Dwayne Haskins is going to be looking all game, because it's what other teams have been able to do with the Browns. If it's that easy one week, they're going to keep throwing it at you until you make the adjustment, and that is what I'm worried about with this Washington attack. It's Terry McLaurin going across the middle. It's what he does best, and it's what the Browns give up the most.
Ward also showed up a little bit on the injury report with a groin issue. Is that reason for concern? Is it not something you're terribly worried about? He was limited in practice.
Right. And talking with Mary Kay, it doesn't seem like something too concerning, but these are the type of injuries when you see them later in the week that you really have to watch closer to kickoff, because no one wants to see anyone show up in the injury report, but the later in the week ones tend to mean something happened in practice that is new. So of course, yes, you have to watch that, and the Browns just cannot afford any more injuries at defensive back. So hopefully Denzel plays through it. He's just being precautious with this, and he'll be fine, because he's, as I said, flirting with elite corner status right now. And if he lands there this season, this Browns defense reaches another level because of it.
Now, the Browns are getting healthy. They've had a number of guys that have returned to practice and could return to the game. Which of the guys that are potentially coming back could make the biggest difference in what we've seen? It's been a challenge on the back half of that defense. Who do you think helps them the most that could potentially be back?
Yeah, for me, it's Kevin Johnson, former first-round pick. He looked real good in training camp, and then it just had the strangest injury. I mean, it's just all my years playing football, covering football, talking about football, reading about football. You don't hear about a lacerated kidney injury occurring in the end zone on a jump ball. It's strange. And point being, he's healthy. He's made a great recovery. That's what's important. And now the Browns can finally get him back on the football field. This young man's ready to prove himself, reestablish himself as one of the better corners. Look, when you're a first-round pick as a defensive back, that comes with a sort of ego, a sort of confidence, and a sort of skill level that got you there in the first place. So that's in Kevin Johnson somewhere. And he might be now in the perfect spot to come play savior as the Browns' nickel slot corner and clean up what has been the messiest part of the defense.
When you look at this defensive line, we've talked about it. It has to be really good for this defense to be okay. How big of an advantage do they have against what's a little bit of a banged-up Washington offensive line that isn't really elite to begin with?
Yeah, they've got a huge advantage. Their left tackle's weak, as Browns fans followed last season. Trent Williams no longer there. He's in San Francisco. So their left tackle's weak. Their Pro Bowl and All-Pro guard was placed on IR this past week. So he was kind of their one secure spot. So now he's a backup, and their right tackle has been exposed to this year. So I really compare it to the Cincinnati offensive line that, all right, the Bengals might have the worst offensive line in football, but Washington definitely is bottom 5, which means has to be another Myles Garrett game. When you're predicting football games, and you see this in Vegas, the one thing that is random is turnovers. You just do not know when an athlete like Myles Garrett is going to get back there and have a strip fumble that completely swings the game. It swung the game in the Browns' home opener win, and they might need that same type of game-swinging play from Myles Garrett once again, and he's facing a weak unit where he could be set up to do so.
Fair to say that defensive line has to dominate the line of scrimmage when Washington has the ball for the Browns to do what they want to do?
Yeah, without a question. If Dwayne Haskins has time to throw, and if these running backs get going, it's a complete indictment on a defensive line that should overpower this weaker offensive line in Washington. I will say this: there are some injuries up front that the Browns defensive line need to be worried about. Adrian Claiborne still isn't practicing, Olivier Vernon. And so, if those guys aren't out there, we're talking about a weaker unit. But Myles still is there, and that big play, that strip sack, is what I'm looking for out of Myles Garrett. But if the whole unit's strong, then yes, this needs to be a complete domination up front by the Browns.
Let's talk a little bit about tight ends. Washington has a pretty good young one in Logan Thomas. Tight ends have been a problem first couple weeks for the Browns. Does he concern you, and what's the answer? Put your defensive coordinator's cap on.
Yeah, and you're not going to like it. There isn't an answer, because if Kevin Johnson is your Terry McLaurin stopper, there's not a tight end stopper yet on this team. That was supposed to be Grant Delpit, and he's not coming back. Ronnie Harrison potentially could be that guy. He showed flashes of it at Alabama, being tough, physical, in the box type of safety that can match up with these tight ends, but he still just isn't getting on the field. And I don't know if that's a playbook thing, if he's just not ready. I don't have those answers yet. If he plays every snap this week, I wouldn't be surprised, because they need him. Andrew Sudejo is not the answer to stop these tight ends. And the Browns continue to get diced up by him. And this might just be the year, much like Arizona had last year, where you're just the worst team in football against opposing tight ends. You can't be great and stop everything. The Browns you're not getting anything outside on the Browns. Running the ball has been a problem, and they're getting after the quarterback. So Kevin Johnson securing the slot corner spot brings this defense into a better light than I think they were a week ago. Now, if Kevin Johnson can't perform and the tight end's still getting anything they want, this could look a lot like what Lamar Jackson was able to do at times with Mark Andrews in the red zone and whatnot. And those are plays that are crippling, because you know the ball's going there, but you still can't stop it.
Last thing I'll ask you before I let you go. You got 3 Buckeyes going against the Browns, former Buckeyes: Dwayne Haskins, Terry McLaurin, and Chase Young. Which one concerns you the most? Which one has the biggest day when he comes back to Ohio?
Oh, that's a good question. I want to say McLaurin, but I'm confident the Browns will find a way to contain him. So let's go with Chase Young, and not because because he'll beat Jack Conklin or Jedrick Wills. Like I said, that's strength on strength, the Browns offensive line versus the Washington defensive line. But I'm just thinking the young man's going to make a play. I'm here moment. He's that type of player. I mean, he takes on double team blocks. I was watching Eagles tape of their tackle and their tight end both try and move him. They do nothing. He goes right through him and blows out the running back in the backfield. That's the type of play. It might not show up in the stat sheet like, oh, Chase Young had a 3-sack game, but he's going to have one of those like, whoa moments on Sunday, and he'll be like, I've arrived. And that's the type of athlete he is. So look for Chase Young to jump off your screen a few times on Sunday, despite the Browns, for the most part, being able to contain him.
Ellis Williams, Browns beat reporter here at cleveland.com, as well as in the pages of the Plain Dealer. As always, appreciate the time and the insight. I'm sure we will be talking quite a bit as the season goes along. Thanks for the time, Ellis.
Thank you, guys.
And Ellis Williams, again, as we talked about the Washington football team and the Browns getting ready. Browns a 7.5-point favorites. Over-under on that is 45. That'll do it for this edition of More Sports and Les Levine, the Weekend Winners Edition. Les will be back in the chair Monday from 6 to 7. We'll see you again next weekend. Have a great week, everyone.